Three monks sit in meditation, but they're not seeking the same thing. The first wants only his own liberation, following the Buddha's original words exactly as spoken 2,500 years ago. The second has vowed to save every living being in existence before entering paradise himself. The third believes he can achieve enlightenment in this very lifetime, using practices so secret they were hidden for 1,000 years. How did one teacher's simple message create three completely different paths to enlightenment? And here's the mystery that will shock you. Each tradition claims the others got it wrong. Today, we're uncovering the hidden story behind Buddhism's Great Divide, revealing how geography, politics, and human nature itself shaped these three magnificent traditions. By the end, you'll understand not just what makes each school unique, but why this division might have been exactly what the world needed. The year was 483 BCE, and the Buddha lay dying under a grove of sal trees. His final words to his disciples were profound, yet troubling. All conditioned things are impermanent. Work out your salvation with diligence. Then he was gone. Imagine the confusion that followed. Here was a teacher who had spent 45 years sharing his insights, but had never appointed a successor, never written down his teachings, never established a formal hierarchy. His followers were left with memories, oral traditions, and a burning question that would echo through the centuries. What exactly did the Buddha really teach? For the first few hundred years, this wasn't a problem. But as Buddhism began to spread beyond India, something fascinating happened. The teachings encountered new cultures, different languages, diverse spiritual traditions, like a river flowing into unfamiliar terrain. Buddhism began to adapt, to transform, to split into distinct streams. The hot and tropical lands of Southeast Asia preserved what they believed were the Buddha's original words, creating Theravāda, the way of the elders. The vast expanses of China, Korea, and Japan embraced a more expansive vision, developing Mahāyāna, the great vehicle. And in the isolated peaks of Tibet, Buddhism merged with ancient practices, forming Vajrayāna, the mysterious diamond vehicle. Let's trace this incredible journey, starting with the tradition that claims to preserve the Buddha's teachings exactly as he spoke them. The year was 247 BCE, nearly 2.5 centuries after the Buddha's death. A young prince named Mahinda stood before his father, Emperor Ashoka of India, the most powerful ruler of his time. But Mahinda had made a choice that shocked the royal court. He had become a Buddhist monk. Ashoka was sending his own son on a deadly mission, cross the treacherous waters to the island of Lanka, find King Devanampiya Tissa, and convert an entire kingdom to Buddhism. The monsoon seas had claimed countless ships. Pirates prowled the shipping lanes, and no one knew if these foreign monks would even survive the journey. But something extraordinary was at stake back in India. Buddhism was under siege. Hindu revivals were challenging Buddhist monasteries. Invasions threatened to destroy centuries of teaching, and the oral traditions that preserved the Buddha's words were at risk of vanishing forever. Mahinda and his fellow monks arrived at Mihintale, a rocky outcrop near the ancient capital of Anuradhapura. King Devanampiya Tissa was hunting in these very hills when he encountered these strange, shaven-headed foreigners. According to the Mahavamsa Chronicle, the king approached cautiously and asked, "Who are you?" Mahinda's response would echo through history. "We are monks, Your Majesty, followers of the King of Dharma, the Buddha. We have come from India with a message of liberation." What happened next was extraordinary. Mahinda began teaching the Chula Hatipatapama Sutra, and the king converted on the spot. But this wasn't just a religious conversion. It was the birth of Theravāda Buddhism. The word Theravāda literally means the way of the elders, and these monks weren't interested in innovation. They believed they possessed something precious beyond measure. The exact words the Buddha had spoken, preserved through an unbroken chain of oral transmission. This conservative approach would prove to be their salvation. When Buddhism nearly vanished from India, the island of Sri Lanka became its fortress. Here, in the golden stupas of Anuradhapura, the monks made a revolutionary decision that would preserve Buddhism for all time. For the first time in 400 years, they wrote down the Buddha's teachings. The Pali Canon, consisting of the Vinaya, the Sutta Pitaka, and the Abhidhamma, became the most complete early Buddhist literature we possess. But Theravada's genius wasn't just preservation, it was practical spirituality. The path is clear and direct. Moral conduct provides the foundation. Concentration sharpens the mind, and wisdom cuts through the illusions that cause suffering. No complex rituals, no elaborate visualizations, no mystical shortcuts. Just the methodical, step-by-step journey toward personal liberation. This intensely personal practice created some of history's most stable, harmonious societies. Today, Theravada remains the dominant tradition in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia, home to over 150 million Buddhists. But as Buddhism spread beyond these tropical strongholds, other communities were asking different questions. What if the Buddha's compassion was meant to be more than personal liberation? What if enlightenment was just the beginning, not the end? These revolutionary ideas would give birth to a movement that would dwarf Theravada in size and ambition. To understand Mahāyāna Buddhism, we must begin with one of the most powerful legends in all of Buddhist literature. Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of infinite compassion, stood before Amitabha Buddha and made the ultimate vow: I will not enter nirvana. I will not rest in perfect peace until every single sentient being in existence has been liberated from suffering. But then, according to the ancient texts, devastation struck. Despite Avalokiteshvara's tireless efforts, the suffering never diminished. For every soul he saved, 10 more fell into darkness. The task seemed impossible. The legend tells us that Avalokiteshvara's heart shattered from overwhelming grief. His head split into pieces. His body crumbled. His spirit broke under the weight of infinite compassion, meeting infinite suffering. Yet Amitabha Buddha, in witnessing his spiritual son's collapse, performed a miracle of transformation. He rebuilt Avalokiteshvara with 11 heads to see suffering in all directions, and 1,000 arms to reach every being in need. The message was clear. True compassion doesn't retreat when overwhelmed. It multiplies its capacity to help. This legend captures the revolutionary spirit that transformed Buddhism around the 1st century BCE. While Theravada monks focused on individual liberation, a new movement emerged with a radically different vision. They called themselves followers of the Mahāyāna, the Great Vehicle, because their goal was to carry all beings to enlightenment, not just themselves. The philosophical shift was profound, where Theravada sought the ideal of the Arhat, the perfected individual who achieves nirvana. Mahāyāna elevated the Bodhisattva, the enlightened being who deliberately postpones their own final liberation to help others. Mahāyāna teachers declared that the ultimate goal wasn't escaping the world of suffering, but transforming it. They taught that nirvana and samsara, enlightenment and ordinary existence, were not separate realms but different ways of perceiving the same reality. As this new Buddhism spread northward from India, it encountered sophisticated philosophical traditions. Rather than replacing existing beliefs, Buddhism engaged with them, merged with them, created entirely new syntheses. The innovations were breathtaking. Chinese Buddhists developed the concept of Buddha nature, the idea that every being already possesses the seed of enlightenment. They created Pure Land Buddhism, offering salvation through devotion. They founded Chan Buddhism, later known as Zen, emphasizing direct realization beyond words and concepts. But perhaps Mahāyāna's greatest innovation was its adaptability. Unlike Theravāda's careful preservation of original forms, Mahāyāna Buddhism became a shapeshifter, transforming to meet the needs of each culture it encountered. Today, Mahāyāna Buddhism encompasses over 500 million practitioners across East Asia and beyond. Whether a Zen monk in Kyoto sitting in silent meditation, a Pure Land devotee in Beijing chanting Amitabha's name, or a scholar in Seoul studying philosophy, all share Avalokiteshvara's ancient vow to save all beings without exception. But our journey through Buddhism's three great traditions isn't complete. High in the mountains of Tibet, another extraordinary development was taking place. The year was approximately 750 CE. King Trisong Detsen of Tibet faced an impossible problem. He wanted to build the first Buddhist monastery in his mountain kingdom, but every attempt ended in disaster. Walls collapsed overnight, foundations cracked without explanation, workers fled in terror. The land itself seemed to resist the foreign religion. The king's advisors whispered of angry spirits, ancient deities who had ruled these peaks since time immemorial. The Bon shamans warned that the Buddhist project was doomed. But then, a message arrived from India that would change everything. Enter Padmasambhava, known to Tibetans as Guru Rinpoche, the precious teacher. This wasn't just another Buddhist monk. Padmasambhava was a master of Tantra, a practitioner of the most advanced, secretive, and powerful forms of Buddhist spirituality. According to Tibetan tradition, as Padmasambhava traveled through the Himalayan passes, he encountered the very demons and spirits that had been terrorizing the monastery builders. But instead of fighting them, he did the unthinkable. One by one, he confronted each demon, each local deity, each wrathful spirit. Using his mastery of tantric practices, he bound them under sacred oath, not to disappear, not to retreat, but to transform their destructive energy into protective power. The demons became Dharmapalas, guardians of Buddhism. This principle became the foundation of Vajrayāna Buddhism, the diamond vehicle. The diamond represents both the indestructible nature of enlightenment and the cutting precision required to achieve it. Vajrayāna practitioners don't seek to escape the world of passion and power. They seek to harness these very forces as fuel for rapid spiritual development. Where Theravāda emphasizes gradual purification over many lifetimes, and Mahāyāna speaks of countless rebirths, Vajrayāna makes an astounding claim. Through the right techniques, enlightenment can be achieved in a single lifetime. Not in some distant future, but here, now, in this very body. The methods developed in Tibet were unlike anything seen before in Buddhism. Complex visualizations where practitioners imagine themselves as enlightened deities, sacred syllables that vibrate through body and mind, intricate mandalas that map consciousness itself, all designed to accelerate the transformation of ordinary awareness into awakened wisdom. For over 1,000 years, this remarkable civilization flourished in isolation. Tibet became a unique society where the pursuit of enlightenment was the organizing principle of daily life. Then came 1950. The Chinese invasion shattered this ancient world almost overnight. the 14th Dalai Lama fled to India in 1959, carrying with him the responsibility for preserving an entire spiritual tradition. Yet this catastrophe led to an unexpected renaissance. Tibetan teachers, scattered across the globe, began sharing their closely guarded secrets with students worldwide. The destruction of traditional Tibet paradoxically led to Vajrayāna's global expansion. But this globalization raises a haunting question. Can these ancient practices maintain their transformative power when torn from their cultural roots? The answer may determine the future of human spiritual development. For over 2 millennia, these 3 Buddhist traditions developed in relative isolation. But our modern world has shattered these ancient boundaries. Today, a single meditation retreat might include techniques from all 3 schools. The question is, are we witnessing Buddhism's greatest evolution or its potential dilution? Despite their diverse methods, all 3 schools share fundamental agreements. They all accept the 4 Noble Truths, the 3 Jewels, and understand enlightenment as the complete transformation of consciousness. The differences are often more about emphasis than essence. Theravada's focus on individual liberation doesn't mean practitioners lack compassion. Mahāyāna's Bodhisattva ideal doesn't ignore personal development. Vajrayāna's rapid methods don't bypass the fundamental path. Each tradition simply emphasizes different aspects of a complete spiritual journey. This convergence is creating unprecedented opportunities. Buddhist teachers trained in one tradition are studying with masters from others. Western practitioners can explore multiple approaches without the geographic constraints that once separated them. Yet this mixing raises serious questions. Traditional teachers worry that combining practices without proper understanding could dilute their effectiveness. The depth achieved through committed practice within one tradition might be lost in superficial sampling from many. Perhaps the answer lies not in choosing, but in understanding. Each tradition developed specific methods for specific purposes. Theravada excels at developing clarity and personal insight. Mahāyāna cultivates compassion for benefiting others. Vajrayāna offers sophisticated techniques for rapid transformation. Rather than competing approaches, they might be complementary phases of a complete spiritual education. Buddhism, returning to its original experimental spirit, the willingness to adapt skillful means to help beings wherever they are. This brings us to the ultimate question that has haunted Buddhism for 2,500 years. But before we dive into that mystery, imagine this scene. A master sits before 3 students. To the first, he teaches through complete silence, letting understanding emerge naturally. To the second, he speaks in riddles and paradoxes, challenging every assumption. To the third, he demonstrates through fire meditation, using dramatic techniques that shock the mind into awakening. Was this master being inconsistent, or was he wise enough to recognize that different minds need different keys to unlock the same door? Which path did the Buddha actually intend? Each tradition claims authenticity, but recent archaeological discoveries suggest something shocking. Ancient texts written in Gandhari, Sanskrit, and other languages don't perfectly match any of the 3 major traditions. These fragments reveal a Buddhism that was diverse from its very beginning. Perhaps the real revelation is this: the Buddha himself might have intentionally taught different methods to different people. The analytical approach for disciples who needed systematic understanding. The compassionate vision for those called to serve others. The transformative techniques for practitioners ready for advanced methods. A master teacher doesn't give the same lesson to every student. The Buddha spent 45 years teaching people of vastly different temperaments and spiritual capacities. Would a truly enlightened teacher use only one approach for such diversity? Instead of three competing interpretations, we might be looking at three complementary aspects of the Buddha's complete teaching: the precision of Theravāda, the compassion of Mahāyāna, the power of Vajrayāna, all reflecting different facets of one extraordinary mind. As these ancient wisdom traditions encounter our hyper-connected world, will they maintain their transformative power? The future of Buddhism, and perhaps human wisdom itself, hangs in the balance. But maybe the real teaching has always been that the path itself creates the destination. The sincere search for truth, whether through Theravāda discipline, Mahāyāna compassion, or Vajrayāna transformation, leads to the same place. The three monks from our opening, sitting in meditation with different goals, may discover they're climbing the same mountain, just from different sides, all heading toward the same summit where their separate paths finally converge. Which of these three traditions speaks to you? Are you drawn to Theravada's precise approach, Mahāyāna's boundless compassion, or Vajrayāna's transformative power? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this journey through Buddhism's three great paths. The path that calls to you is the path calling you home.